Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today, and welcome to the New Yorkers for Parks webinar series. Today's webinar is all about New York City's community board system and how they can help you as park and garden advocates. Our webinars allow the New Yorkers for Parks staff the opportunity to share tools, resources, and research to you on your own time. My name is Gabriella, and I am the Community Outreach Coordinator here at New Yorkers for Parks.
Hi, I'm Wendell, and I am the Outreach Fellow for Great Parks. Today we are pleased to be joined by Brian Kaszuba, a member of Brooklyn Community Board 10. He'll share some valuable perspectives as an active community board member, and we're thrilled he could join us.
For those of you who are new to New Yorkers for Parks, we are the citywide independent organization championing quality parks and open spaces for all New Yorkers in all neighborhoods. Here at New Yorkers for Parks, we believe that great parks make a great city, and we have been spreading this message for over 110 years. New Yorkers for Parks is a research and advocacy organization that listens to and works with communities. We work with New Yorkers to craft parks and open space related public policy, analyze data and create reports, and advocate every day for better parks across the city. Our webinar series seeks to demystify how the city works and how various representatives can be engaged to think proactively about supporting our city parks.
As we mentioned earlier, today we'll be leading you in a webinar about New York City's community boards. Our learning outcomes today are as follows. We'll discuss the basics of what a community board is, what role they play for the neighborhoods they serve, and how park advocates can use community boards to their benefit. This webinar will last about 35 minutes with an additional 10 minutes for questions from our guests. We'll have time at the end of today's presentation to answer any audience questions that might come up, so please feel free to submit as many questions as you would like. They will all be answered at the end. With that in mind, let's get started.
To ask a question, click the chat button in the lower left-hand corner of your screen. If you are on your smartphone, your screen will look a bit different. You can click the chat box under the smiley face to submit a question. If you are having any technical issues, feel free to let us know and our fellow Wendell will help you. Before we get into the roles of the community board, let's do a quick overview of how the New York City government is managed. This chart, provided by the City of New York, details the structure of New York City's government.
Here is the same chart zoomed in to show you how integral the role of community board is in magnifying local voices.
Community boards are appointed advisory groups for community districts throughout the 5 boroughs of New York City. As an advisory body, community boards compile recommendations on behalf of the communities to share with the borough president and their local city council member or members.
A community board is a local representative body made up of 50 unsalaried members. These members must reside, work, or have some other significant interest in the community. Half of the members are appointed by the borough president, and half come from nominations from the city council members whose district the community boards fall in. The minimum age to be part of a community board is 16. As of April 2019, community board positions are now term limited by the city charter, and board members are now subject to a limit of serving 4 consecutive 2-year terms.
Community boards have paid district managers who lead them, along with a brick and mortar office and paid staff. There are 59 community districts in all 5 boroughs, 12 in Manhattan, 12 in the Bronx, 18 in Brooklyn, 14 in Queens, and 3 in Staten Island.
It's important to note here, which you may have noticed from the map, community districts in New York are different from city council districts. For example, you may live in City Council District 8, which encompasses both Manhattan and the Bronx, but also live in either Manhattan Community Board District 11 or Bronx Community Board District 1. It is important to double check yours and know the difference. If you do not know your community board district, you can find this easily online by going to mygovnyc.org and entering your address. We'll use the NY4P office address as an example throughout this presentation. As you can see here on the screen, this allows you to see all of your representatives from city level officials, including your council member and community board, up to your federal representatives.
Once a month, community boards hold meetings that are open to the public. These public meetings allow board members to learn more about what is happening in their community so they can share it at the closed borough board meetings. These borough board meetings are held monthly with the chair of every community board in the borough president, and representatives from various city agencies. Listed on this slide are the responsibilities that community boards have.
Functionally, community boards have several key roles to play for the neighborhoods they serve. One of their primary roles deal with land use and zoning. This important adversary role means that community board must be consulted on the placement of most municipal facilities in the community. These are buildings owned, leased, and or operated by the City of New York. Community boards play a really large role when it comes to applications for changes in or variance from the city's zoning resolution, which must come before the board for review. Importantly, for park and open space advocates, community boards must be updated and give approval for park improvement projects throughout the city. Often, the park subcommittee of the community board must receive regular updates from New York City parks on capital projects and other open space issues. Community boards can also submit their own plans for the development, growth, and improvement of communities if they like.
Another role that community boards play is in addressing what are known as community concerns. Any issues that affect any part of the community district, from a traffic problem to a deteriorating building, could fall under this category. Community boards concerns and hopefully working with the city help to solve these problems. Community boards have an advisory capacity and cannot make or enforce laws. Despite this, their composition and connections to city government do not make them the very opposite, make them an important body when it comes to governance in New York City.
Lastly, community boards provide district-wide assessments to the city. Each year, community boards assess the needs of their communities and community members. These needs are shared in what is called the annual Statements of Community District Needs and Community Boards and Community Board Budget Requests. These reports are mandated by the city charter and play a key role in informing the city's annual budget process. After these assessments are made, community boards then meet with city agencies like New York City Parks to make informed recommendations to be included in the needs statement and budget requests. While including a project isn't a binding commitment from the city to get it done, it gives local advocates a major leverage point with city decision makers who can fund park improvements and other open space projects. Additionally, community boards often rely on the feedback from residents and local park advocates to determine what projects should be included in these annual documents. This is an important opportunity for park advocates to help shape their community district needs statement and budget requests, and can also be a great way to help elevate projects that local advocates would like to see become reality. We'll share more on how to get involved in this process in a bit. Within community boards, there are committees. These committees allow a space for the members to do most of their planning and work to address the neighborhood concerns or issues that are brought to the attention of the community board. Committees may be set up in one of two ways.
First, they may be functional committees, which deal with charter-specific mandates. For instance, a land use review committee or a budget committee. The second form of committee is an agency committee, which will relate to a particular city agency, such as the Parks Committee or the Sanitation Committee. Each community board will choose the committee structure that best meets the needs of the district, so not every community board has the same committees as another.
Here is the Manhattan Community Board number 1's meeting calendar. You can see some common committees that are part of many community boards, such as landmarks and preservation, and land use, zoning, and economic development committees. There are also more area-specific committees that reflect the priorities of the neighborhood, such as the Battery Park City Committee. Check out your local community board's website to learn what committees your board hosts.
An important thing to note is that non-board members are allowed to apply to join committees. We will explain how to join a committee as a non-member in a few slides.
That was a very brief breakdown about what community boards are and how they are organized. We want to take a moment to note a helpful data resource about community boards that exist. The New York City Department of City Planning has a Community District Profiles portal, which includes detailed information about every community board district in the city. This is a great place to find out more about district-specific data and resources for your neighborhood, as well as records of recent district needs statements and budget requests. Here's an example of the various kinds of data points and resources you can find through the site. You can access this portal at communityprofiles.planning.nyc.gov.
Now that we know more about the basics of community boards and how to locate which community district we live in, we are going to talk about how you, as a park advocate, can utilize your local community board to help with your open space advocacy. We mentioned earlier that the community boards play a role in land use and zoning, and also are a large part of the city budget process. When you put these two roles together, community boards have the opportunity to become critical to open space related advocacy. Let's take a closer look at the land use and zoning role that community boards play.
Because community boards have to be consulted when it comes to municipal facilities and informed of changes to zonings, community boards meetings are one of the best places for advocates to get a heads up on changes that might be coming to their neighborhoods. The public meeting allows attendees a chance to avoid concerns or opinions on issues raised during the meeting. For example, if you have heard about changes to your local park and want to learn more or give testimony for or against these changes, it is a great idea to head to your next community board meeting or hearing and share your thoughts on the issue. Now let's discuss how your local community board can be a great resource when it comes to the capital budget process.
As we mentioned earlier, community boards listen to their residents in order to complete the statements of community district needs and community board budget request, or more simply put, the community needs assessments. Every fiscal year, community boards throughout the city submit these reports, which outline the major issues within their neighborhoods and make a formal budget request for fixing some of these issues. These issues can be anything from a playground renovation to facilities upgrades at a local school. This report is not only integral to the city's budget process, but it also goes forward to support the community in discussions with elected officials and various city agencies.
A continuous presence and participation at your local community board is key to making your issues the community board's issues. For example, if you or maybe even a local group attend a community board meeting and express concerns with the fencing around a neighborhood park, your community board takes your thoughts and concerns into account and shares it with the city council. As a reminder, while the priorities and concerns of a community board are valued, the board can only have an advisory role. Even though the board itself does not have the capability to make direct impacts to the city's budget, community board recommendations are given serious thought, particularly when it comes to the city's capital budget.
One of the best ways to get your issues to reach your community board is to attend one of the focused committee meetings. As mentioned earlier, community boards have committees based on the community's interests, such as economic development, land use, housing, parks, and more. You can, of course, attend the larger monthly community board meetings, but if you attend a specific committee meeting, say the Parks Committee or Land Use Committee, you will get to speak to a smaller audience. The smaller group size will allow you the opportunity for more speaking time, and most importantly, face-to-face time with members of the community board who are most interested in your cause.
To find out if your community board has a particular committee, visit your community board's website. There you should be able to find out what committees they have, when they meet, and how to contact your chair or district manager. If you don't see a committee for your issue listed online or confused by anything on the board's website, feel free to reach out to your district manager on their staff. Their contact information can be found on your community board's website, which you can access via the mygovnyc.org website.
While presenting to a community board, it is always a great option for advocating on your behalf for open spaces. Joining your local community board is another fantastic way to support your local green and open spaces. Here are a couple of tips on how you can join your community board.
There are a couple of different ways to join a community board. One option is to become a public member. Public members are not appointed by the borough president or city council, but rather are appointed by the chair of the community board. As a public member, you can serve on committees. Being on a committee is a great way to remain a consistent advocate for green space maintenance in your district. You should also be aware of what exactly this type of commitment will look like. For example, some boards will ask that you serve at least on one committee, while other boards may require more. The amount of meetings you have to attend is also something to consider. Along with attending one or more committee meetings, which occur once a month per committee, you will also have to attend general board meetings as well. So make sure your schedule is able to accommodate all this before you decide you want to join.
If you decide you are ready to make a bigger commitment to the board and you want to do more than serve on a subcommittee, you can begin the process of getting on the general board. Once a year, applications to serve on the general board can be found on your borough president's website. Here, you can see some excerpts from the Manhattan application. They all look fairly similar across the 5 boroughs. If you don't have access to a computer, you can call your borough president's office or your local community board for more information on how to apply. Community board applications are open presently, and several community boards have their deadlines to apply approaching very soon, so now is a great time to apply. Before you begin this process, you should know there are a limited number of seats on boards, and although New York City voters recently voted to change the community board structure to include term limits, members are currently allowed to serve 4 consecutive 2-year terms. If you are still unsure about joining your community board, attend a meeting and speak to your neighbors. The great thing about community boards is that no two are the same, just like the communities they represent.
Alrighty now that we've given an overview of what community boards are and how they can help you with addressing community needs, we'd like to hear from someone with direct community board experience. We're pleased to be joined by Brian Kaszuba of Brooklyn Community Board 10. He's here to speak from the perspective of an active member of a community board and share some tips with you all about how community boards can best serve your local advocacy efforts. Brian, thank you so much for joining us, and feel free to send your questions as I monitor them.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
All right, so we have a few questions for you before we open it to the audience. First, we'd love to know more about how you first got involved with your local community board. How long have you been involved, and are there any subcommittees you've served on over the years?
Sure. I was first appointed in spring 2013, so almost 7 years now. I've been involved in my community for a little over 20 years in different capacities, and that enabled me to gain relationships with local electeds, people on the board, the district manager, and working on issues in the community, which benefited me when it came time for me to apply to the board. I have had the opportunity to serve on numerous committees. Right now, I serve actually as the treasurer on the executive board and chair of the communications committee. And in the past, I was served as chair of the zoning and land use committee. And I was also a member of the Parks Committee, the Senior Issues Committee, Transportation Committee, and Budget and Personnel Committee as well.
That is quite a lot. In your experience, have you seen your community board help with park improvement or advocacy issues in your community district? And are there any valuable lessons learned from some of those examples that you'd like to share with our listeners?
Definitely. And community boards really have the opportunity to be a big player when it comes to park advocacy, as you alluded to. Every year, when it comes for time for budgeting, the board submit what they want the city to spend capital funding on and make recommendations. The board generally do that early in the fall, make recommendations, at which time people from the public will come and give their opinions as to what needs to be done. And we're fortunate in my community board in South Brooklyn, makes up Bay Ridge, Fort Hamilton, Dyker Heights, to have a lot of open space areas. And with that, it's constant needs for maintenance and improvements and what we can do better. We have a great local council member down there, Justin Brannon, who has worked well with the community board and the community to put forth new initiatives. And previous council member as well, Vincent Gentili, did the same. In recent years, the community board has advocated for a lot of capital funding, whether it be the Shore Road Promenade, the park down there, ramps, the parks near Fort Hamilton High School, and recent reports are showing that the city has allocated significant funding to both improve and better our parks in our community. And a lot of that has started from advocacy that took place at meetings that the community board held.
Excellent. That's really great to hear. What recommendations or advice do you have for any of our viewers or listeners who might be interested in applying to join their local community board? And what do you wish was something you had known before you yourself joined as a board member?
I think it's important to be active in your community, be present, to show up, to go to meetings, to apply. As you said, the applications are out right now. Many of them actually close early February, so now's the time to do it. And it's important to know that even if you apply and you don't get it on your first try, don't be discouraged. Sometimes it takes a couple of opportunities to do that. But it's important to go to meetings and introduce yourself to the district manager, members of the community board. Introduce yourself to the local council member, and show up and participate at the public forums, as a member of the public, because there's opportunity to do that. And by doing that, it gives you a better chance and opportunity to become a part of the board at a later time.
Thank you. Do you have any advice for our viewers about the best way to raise concerns or issues with their local community board? What have been some effective advocacy techniques that you've seen from local organizations? And are there any strategies you would advise people to avoid or steer away from in the process of advocating for your community board?
Yeah, I think organizing it is a great way to do it. A lot of parks, especially in our community, have friend of groups, and they're very active, local residents who support and are putting forth ideas for their local parks. And at our community board, especially when it comes time for the Parks Committee that are open to the public, not just the general meeting, but all the committee meetings are open to the public. It's a great opportunity for advocates to come to these meetings, not only speak to members of the community board itself, but to speak to elected officials and often representatives from the Parks Commission, who come down and give presentations and listen to not just the members of the board, but to the advocates as well. So I think in our case, advocates and friends of groups who have worked well with the board, constructively, open-mindedly, not necessarily being negative, but figuring out a way to proactively work with the board and the local electeds, have been successful at promoting and achieving their goals.
Yeah, I can see that. Well, thank you so much for your insight into our community board system. It's really great to have the perspective of someone who's an active board member, and we really appreciate you taking the time to join us on this webinar. We're now going to take a few moments and open it up to the audience and see what questions there might be.
Alrighty. Our first question is, how can I get involved / participate at my community board if I don't have the time to fully commit to board membership?
That's a great question. And community boards definitely are a lot of time commitments. You do have to attend several meetings a month at the general meeting, and on our board you get appointed to at least two committees. So at least there's 3, maybe 4 times a month that you have to actively participate. And if you don't necessarily feel you have the time to do that, come when you can. Come to the meetings when you can. And if you can't, many boards now are either live streaming or putting video of their hearings and their meetings. There might be audio footage, or a lot of boards at least post their minutes from their meetings afterwards. So there's a way to stay involved. Many boards now are actually very active on social media as well. So there's ways to contact, get involved, and get your points across to the community board, even if you can't attend.
Thank you for that question. And we have another one. It is, what are the benefits to joining a community board? How is it more effective than me just meeting with Department of Parks and Recreation or my local council member directly?
If you could do that, that's great. I think what the community board does is it provides a vehicle to be able to gain access to these people. The community board, as a body, is a body that the Parks Department and the elected officials work with. Often they seek advice and counsel from, and being a part of these boards enable you to work in a sort of a formal coalition to work through ideas and promote and put forth different projects that the Parks Department or the elected officials can listen to. So they come to our meetings. Parks Department officials do regularly come to our committee meetings, and we have a strong relationship with them. So by being on the board and an active member, you have a better chance of your voice being heard.
Thank you. We have a couple more. Do we need a specific skill set / professional or formal experience to participate on a board?
I think that's a great question, and the answer is no. It's the best boards and the best committees that I've been a part of have had a well-rounded, diverse membership. I'll give an example. chaired the land use committee. People think you need to be a land use expert in order to be on the committee. And the answer is no. If you're a member of the committee, we want to hear from all different perspectives, all different points of view. And the point of view that an expert might have might be different than the point of view of just, someone who's interested in the community. When it comes to parks, you have to think about that. It's not just someone's interested in the infrastructure, the architecture of what it is, but who's using it. And so it might be a senior citizen who's using it for one activity. It might be someone who's active looking to run. It might be a parent. Last year I became a father for the first time, and I'm seeing parks in a different way, and the use of more baby swings and infrastructure like that. So we want people on our boards who give different perspectives from all walks of life, that see things from different points of view, and in that way we all get a good sense of what our community is looking for.
Thank you. We have a fun question coming up. It says, how can we work with our community board to convince a council member to not be cheap when it comes to spending money on parks, such as repairs to walking paths that are continually flooding and prone to mud pits? How do you deal with a council member who wants to save money and sacrifice quality?
It's obviously important that the community boards and public and the council members try to work together. I think the best communities are aware that is happening. However, the council member and the boards may not always necessarily see eye to eye, but it's important that the board works with the community to be able to try to effectively change that council member's mind. And it could be through public forums, it could be through petitions, it could be through independent studies that the board puts forth. Every community board does have a certain amount of budgetary money that they get from the city, and they often work to put forth different reports and studies that they share with the council member as to why things should happen. Many have interns. The one thing to remember is that the board is made up of lay people. So these are people who are not getting paid, and they're doing this on a volunteer basis, the 50 members. However, the boards generally have a few small staff who are really great, district managers and support staff. And they can work together to put forth position papers that often can be convincing for the council member.
I guess continuing on with the topic of budgets, we have a question that said, is it possible for you to give a timeline on the board's budget process?
Sure, it's a great question. So when it comes to the capital expense funding, the city requests that the community boards submit that in the fall. So I know my board and most boards generally initially do that in September, October. So there will be public hearings that people can come to both at the committee level and the full board meeting in September, October, where, in case, example, park advocates can come and say, hey, we think, this certain park deserves more funding, for broken down playground equipment, or we need a new, slide set, or we want more green space. So the fall is the time when the community boards put their priorities together and put them together to submit to the city. Once that happens, then the city looks at that information, and then early spring gets back to them as to what they think can or can't be done. And obviously, as we know, the full budgetary process ends in June when the council and the mayor sign off and vote on the full budget. But the process starts as early as fall. So if you're looking to definitely influence how the capital spending is done, the time to start doing that could be late summer, early fall, in order to get it on the community board's radar.
Thank you. And our final question is, how does one get nominated by the city council member to be on the board? What types of candidates are likely to be chosen for the board? They're looking to create a stronger application for themselves.
Again, I think it depends. I think it differs from, I can't speak for every council member, but, I know that boards definitely look for well-rounded members. And, as a member of the board, and I know my district manager and our chair, When people come forward to us and say that they want to be on the board, we'll often go to the council member too on their behalf and be like, hey, I think this person is going to be good for the board. But we're really looking for a well-rounded board. So a combination of people with certain expertise, but combination of people from all walks of life. So you can be as young as 16 years old. So we're looking for someone who can speak from that perspective. We're looking for, mothers and fathers. We're looking for senior citizens. We're looking for, those who are, handicapped. So we're looking for a diverse, intersection from all walks of, nationalities. So we really want a diverse board. So look at the makeup of your board. Look at what you feel it's missing, where their strengths and weaknesses are, and put forth why you feel that you're going to be a good candidate and how you can contribute and add to the board.
Alrighty. I think I have a personal question going off what you just
Sure.
said. What kind of outreach does community boards do, or is it simply about knowing your community board and having an addiction manager or someone who's already on the board? For people who are trying to get into community boards who may be new to New York or new to the borough or just turned 16 and for some reason really want to put their fingers in it.
Mm-hmm.
How do they learn about community boards if they don't already know about community boards?
It's a great question, and again, no board is necessarily created equal, but some boards do things better than others. But the first place to go is the community board websites. You can go there. You can go to the city community assistant unit website as well, and you can find out just the overall nature about boards. But most boards will have on their websites the listing of when their meetings are, what the makeup of the board is, what issues they're working on, what issues they have to work on. And a lot of boards, will have, newsletters that you can sign up for, either things that come in the mail, some have electronic newsletters, and many boards really have done well working with social media to get information out to the public. So boards are definitely try to let the public know what they're doing. And anytime there's a public hearing regarding a particular issue, especially the zoning issues or even parks issues, they will go as far as doing, door-to-door lit drops to people in that particular area and let them know, hey, we're going to have a public hearing on a particular issue that might be affecting you. We want to know what your opinion is. Either come to our meeting, email us what you think. So it's important for boards to be communicative and get their word out to the public. And the public generally has a good array of ways to find out information because of that.
Great. Thank you so much for answering all of our questions. Audience, please give Brian Kaszuba a nice digital round of applause.
Thank you all.
And we're going to
Yeah, thank you. I am echoing all that. And it's just, again, really special to have you join us, Brian, representing Community Board 10 and providing some additional insight. Is there anything you want to add to share with the audience today?
Definitely. In addition to being on Brooklyn Community Board 10, I serve as the Associate Director for the Center for New York City Law at New York Law School. And, we have a longstanding relationship with New Yorkers for Parks on Open Space Dialogues Forum. And we have a free online publication called citylandnyc.org. And I encourage people to go there. We post on a regular basis daily articles about land use and preservation, but also often, issues when it comes to, parks and improvements there. So if you're looking to learn about what's going on in the city and you're looking to learn about more information about parks and land use, definitely go to citylandnyc.org for, free coverage, that you can see. So we encourage you to do that.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much.
We hope the information shared with you today helps in your advocacy efforts, and we encourage anyone interested in advocating for park improvements to reach out to their community boards with their concerns. Additionally, you can view our webinar titled, How Can I Improve My Park?, to learn more about how to effectively advocate for better park maintenance and new park projects.
Also, feel free to check out our webinar titled Getting to Know Play Fair to learn more about how New Yorkers for Parks is working with park and open space advocates across the 5 boroughs to get more resources dedicated to New York City parks.
Finally, at New Yorkers for Parks, we believe parks and open spaces are integral to living a happy and healthy life in New York City. Check out our Public Realm Bill of Rights, created from our discussions with community members to see what we consider to be every New Yorker's rights to open and green space. The Public Realm Bill of Rights is an effective tool for engaging with elected officials. It reflects how community members believe our elected officials can better support our public parks and open spaces. We hope you will join us in calling on your local elected officials to support the parks, playgrounds, gardens, and open spaces that make your neighborhoods livable.
If you have any questions or you want to learn more about how you can make a difference in your community, please feel free to contact us for more information. Our information is listed on the screen. Also, don't forget to head to our website at www.ny4p.org for more webinars and other advocacy resources.
Lastly, follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at NY4P for the latest news on all things New Yorkers for Parks. Thank you so much for joining us today, and see you next time.